On a frozen morning city bus, a rider verbally attacks the driver over a failed fare tap, holding everyone hostage. A tired nurse steps in, buys the man a weekly pass at her own expense, and accepts being marked tardy at work to ease the tension. The gesture quietly reshapes the route's mood as small acts echo back, including a surprising apology and a supple recognition of the driver's private burdens. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And, hey, where are you tuning in from? Leave your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach. The bus heater fought the cold and lost. The windows were ghosted in white breath. Salt crust glittered on the rubber floor. A line of wet boots creaked down the aisle. The driver kept his gloves on even with the wheel worn, and his voice was the same every morning. Like a bell, no one noticed. He said morning into the aisle like a coin tossed into a fountain. The fare box chimed green for some and red for others. Most of us pretended not to hear the driver. We had earbuds, or screens, or just that look you wear when it is too early to be a person. A woman in blue scrubs slid into the seat across from me, puffy black coat still on, badge swinging from a lanyard, hair pulled back into a messy knot, the kind of face that tells you she works nights or just did. She tucked her hands under her thighs, the way you do when you are cold and trying to sit on heat that is not there. Then a man in a camel coat climbed on with a chill stuck to him. Sharp haircut, wireless earbuds, seated like he was on a call with the moon. He moved like the bus owed him steps. The fare box blinked red and screamed its little no. He tapped his phone again, harder. Same angry beep. He stared at the driver like the machine had insulted his family. "Come on, man," he said loud enough for back rows. "It's full. Just go." The driver kept his hands still. "I can't move unless you're paid or you're off," he said. Calm, like he was reading the weather. "You serious? It's $2. Drive." He planted himself in the aisle, and the door kept sighing warm air out into the street. People behind him shifted. A baby started a low whine and wound it up to a cry. The bus was a held breath. A teenage kid, 2 seats back, lifted his phone, camera pointed at the driver's face. A woman with a lunch cooler stared down at her shoes. The camel coat guy rolled his eyes and made a show of looking at his watch. He gestured at the windshield like time was stuck to it. "I'm not missing a meeting because of a broken machine," he said. "Let me through or I'm reporting you." The driver didn't look at him. He reached for the little handset that calls dispatch. You could see the math he was doing. Paperwork, warnings, winter, none of it paid extra. The woman in scrubs stood up like it hurt. She lifted her pass and tapped the reader. It flashed green for the next rider in line. "It's good," she said, quiet. She looked at the man. "You're tapped in. Just sit." He blinked like she had spoken a language he forgot he knew. "I don't need your charity," he said, but it was softer. He had no place for his anger with someone who was not making a show of it. She kept her eyes on the driver. "Do you mind stopping at the corner store up here? The one with the posters? I'll get him a week, so we don't do this again." Her voice was worn, flat, but steady. The driver looked up into his mirror. "Our faces made a field." He nodded once. "Next light," he said. At the next light there was a corner store with posters taped to the glass. Raffles. Missing cat. 20 different lottery logos fading in pale winter sun. The bus eased toward the curb. The driver popped the door. Cold bit in all our teeth. She jogged out with her coat half-zipped, shoes slapping wet on the concrete. Inside, a man behind plexiglass counted scratch-offs. She dug in a pocket. A folded grocery list fluttered to the floor. She bent to pick it up and dropped a coin that rolled under the chip rack. The guy at the counter moved slow. She waited with her jaw set. People on the bus shifted and sighed and huffed fog. She came back out with a little paper sleeve and a receipt. Fingers red from cold breath steam. She stepped up, handed the sleeve to the camel coat guy without looking at his face. "It's a weekly," she said. "You're good." He didn't take it at first. Then he did. He tucked it into his coat like a secret he didn't want, but couldn't return. The bus exhaled. The door closed. The heat tried again. The teenage kid lowered his phone. Someone near the front said, "Thanks, but it might have been to the driver, or the ceiling, or just to air." The driver looked at the woman for half a second. "Appreciate it," he said. "Not big, just a word to put in a pocket." She slid back to her seat and stared out at the dirty snow lining the curb. She texted with both thumbs, eyes wet but not from crying. My seat creaked on a turn. I looked anywhere that was not a human face. I saw the edge of a photo taped beside the fare box, a leg in a brace, pale knee marked with purple pen lines. The camel coat guy swallowed his shows. My bank froze my card this morning. He said to no one in particular, or maybe to his shoes. Fraud thing happens, the driver said. He wasn't trying to make a thing about it. The light changed. The bus moved. When the bus finally hit the hospital stop, she called someone and said, "Charge me the point." She listened to whatever voice was on the other end and nodded, even though they couldn't see it. "No, it's my fault. I'm coming in. I'm sorry," she said. She hung up, breathed out, rolled her shoulders. The phone screen had a spiderweb crack like it had been dropped one time too many. A grocery list stuck out from her pocket. Eggs, rice, apples, detergent. Under that, a number circled, 27.99. She stood to go. The driver popped the door. She lifted a hand without turning around. "Thanks," she said. He answered with the same word, like they were trading the only coin either of them had extra. The bus pulled back into traffic. He kept his eyes on the road. He had those eyes that hold a whole city in them. There was a small jar tucked next to the meter with a handful of peppermints. The kind you buy because the office supply store is out of everything else. He took one after the next red light, crushed it between molars. I watched his jaw work and wondered what paperwork was waiting at the end of his route. I wondered who belonged to the knee in the photo. The next morning something tiny had shifted. People stepped on and met the driver's eyes for half a beat. A woman with a stroller looked helpless at the gap, and the teenage kid from yesterday hopped up without anyone asking, swung the front wheels clear. "I've got you," he said, and meant it. The driver said morning, and 3 voices answered him. I am not making a parade out of that. It was small. It was enough to make the bus feel like less of a box. On Wednesday, the camel coat guy reappeared. Same coat, no earbuds. He waited his turn, tapped the weekly the woman had bought, watched the green blink like he was checking a pulse. When he reached the front, he set a coffee in a paper cup on the ledge. "For you?" he said, eyes down. "I'm sorry about the other day." He did not perform it. He did not wait for the bus to applaud. The driver nodded. "Drive safe," the guy said, and went to the back. I started keeping a spare, single-ride card behind my phone case. The first time I used it, the man who needed it looked like the world had spared him a gust of wind. He tried to hand me 2 wrinkled ones. I shook my head and looked at the driver instead. He gave that half nod again. By Friday, there was a scrap of notebook paper taped by the fare box in a child's handwriting. "Thank you for getting us to school," with a little doodle of a bus that had way too many wheels. Somebody had stuck a small sticker on the corner, a blue star. The peppermints got refilled and then disappeared faster, because people started taking them with a joke. And if you can make a joke at 6 in the morning on a bus, you're doing something brave. The woman in scrubs came back through a few days later with a fresh bruise peeking from under her sleeve. She moved like she had carried a person twice her size yesterday. She tapped in, and the reader sang for her. She found the same seat across from me and blew warm air into her hands. The driver wiped the seat nearest the front with a paper towel and flicked crumbs into a bag. He didn't look at her when he did it. He didn't need to make it a moment. I kept seeing the edge of that knee photo, and then one morning it was gone. In its place was a flyer folded into a triangle, "Welcome Home," written in marker. The driver smiled at it once when he thought no one was looking, and that was all I knew about it. A transit supervisor rode along one day, clipboard balanced on one knee, eyes scanning. I watched him watch the driver and make notes and talk into a radio. At the end of the stretch, he shook the driver's hand and left. No ceremony. Later, the driver taped a small laminated card next to the mirror. "Commendation," it said in tiny print. I don't know if that was tied to anything. I liked seeing it there. A couple of times the bus still got stuck. A car blocked the lane. An ambulance wailed past, and we pulled over and held our breath again, this time for a better reason. The city stayed itself. The early dark came too early. We still had our tired mornings and our bad ones. Nothing huge changed. No big news story. No viral clip. No lesson written in the sky. Just this cluster of small things that made the ride gentler. Money mattered, time mattered, risk mattered. You could see where the cost landed and where it lifted a little. On Monday, the woman in scrubs got on and showed a little smile. She had a new cracked line on her phone, another story I would never know. She tapped in. Her eyes went to the front. The driver gave that tiny nod. They had this quiet language now. It did not need words. I still think about the second the bus took a breath. The sound of the door, the cold, the paper sleeve and red fingers, the way a man's voice dropped when there was nowhere for his anger to stick. It all got very human, very fast. It stayed that way longer than I expected. On the dash, a small paper cup sent up a lazy ribbon of steam. Winter sun scratched gold across the windshield. The driver reached for the wheel. The bus hunched into the street. The heat kept trying anyway.